Per Perfect. So, I'd like to begin with some questions from myself, and you can always answer to one another or make questions to one another. And of course, we will turn to the audience for extra questions over time. So, William, on you first. Whenever I find a neuroscientist in a panel, I want to, ask some questions. So I really loved the term mirrors in your title, because I kind of think like that when I find the natural and artificial intelligence scheme. So when I look myself in the mirror, I see something exactly identical to me. It does exactly what I do, right? So that was the very idea, the initial idea of artificial intelligence in relation to the natural intelligence in the 50s, right? So to program something, to model something that humans can do, the human brain can do. But I acknowledge when I see myself in the mirror that it is not Giannis, right? Ontologically speaking, it is not me. It is an identical representation of me, but it's not me. So what would your opinion be on attributing when we refer to robots or artificial intelligence with the term intelligence, as we do with natural intelligence? What would your opinion be on attributing the same ontological essence to what we modeled with the thing that we modeled? Do you agree? As a neuroscientist, do you disagree? Do you think we do that? Your opinion, let's put it in another way, your opinion on whether computers and artificial intelligence is indeed intelligence and can think.
Yeah, I guess the worry is that it might all come down to how we define these terms. I think in very many reasonable senses of the definitions of the words intelligence, they're clearly capable of doing things that we would define as intelligent, and I think it would be crazy not to apply the word. For example, reasoning through stuff. For anyone who's sat there and watched the chain of thought, the thing that gets produced when Claude is reasoning through logic, I think it's very hard not to see similarities between how that process happens in Claude and how our own reasoning happens. That sequence of steps feels like it has enough similarities to warrant the same word. Whether you think an important aspect of thinking is the self-reflection of it, perhaps that is vital for you. That is much harder to say whether the same processes are happening. My guess as a neuroscientist, it'd be like you can play the thought experiment where you slowly replace every part of your brain with a silicon version of it, and you will be able to create it, so it's not impossible. And I think it's very unclear whether the systems we have at the moment are doing it, but I think some version likely will be able to. I have no idea whether that's like happened, soon to happen, or far off, and will never do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. Is there any question for William from the audience? Not even one? Okay, you might come with questions later. We'll return. So I wanted to ask Andreas. So in the last slide of your presentation, you said designing the future so that it be more open, or to make the next generations care mutually, and other stuff that I couldn't write quickly. So when we design something for someone else, we kind of predict things for them, right? We predict some things that might happen based on principles of today. So can we thus, in this sense, design for the future generation in that way so that they will be free and flourish on its own? I mean, the same thing that we criticize companies that they do for us, they design for us. If we say that we will design in such a way so that the future generation do this or that, do we do the same on them? Or how can we avoid it, I mean, in your opinion?
Well, for what I can adds, I mean, the crucial point is not to make AI as a substitute for judgment, but we have to use it as a tool for, you know, for human responsibility. And that means a couple of things. First of all, we could say that we really want a real accounting on the environmental cost that these will have on our different strategic types. We'll also have to, I suppose, take control of the attention-shaping architectures. That means that we have to have a clear view of how the AI creates and reshapes our attention and stuff like that, meaning that we, with those in hand, safeguard, you know, a better use of AI. The goal is not to stop AI. That's not the goal, but to make sure that in using it, we will create a better, you know, a better future for us and for also the next generations.
Yeah, that's very important, and we could make a follow-up question to this, that who is this we that can shape technology, and then we move on to Dimitrios' presentation over the who is this we. This is a political question, of course. So, Dimitri, do you that the human essence is a usefulness, that we are reduced to merely useful beings, or beings with the affordance of usefulness, is not something new. It's not something AI brought, right? To remind you, Heidegger, since the 1950s, the famous Martin Heidegger, the philosopher, speaks of the Gestell, of the meaning that in modernity beings are reduced to just the affordance of usefulness. They are a standing reserve, something which stands there to be used. So, and it is also known that we cannot just articulate a new ontology, because this is an ontological feature that we're talking about, whether we are just a standing reserve or not. So do you think that the commons to which you referred and the techno theater as an institution for the commons has the ability, bear the ability to alter an ontological regime?
Yes.
Not only political, but ontologically speaking. Can we see the world and the beings in a different manner through a bottom-up initiative of the commons?
Well, I mean, we have to. We have to. And that was the problem of modernity, that everything was deemed through utilitarian lenses. So, but this was tied to anangi, as Greeks would say it, the needs. We need necessity, exactly. But this is what this technology brings to the table. Abundance, probably, let's hope so. So this takes need out of the question. We have no excuse anymore to set our societies in this way. Because if necessity gets out of the way, what it remains? Just power. Hierarchy of power. The need of power. Nietzsche out of the window all over again. So are we going to go really back to this regime? I don't think so. I think the only way forward is to try and understand our human societies through relational lens. And that's why marginalized philosophies or terminologies really give something nuanced to these challenges, because they give us, they arm us with phenomenological terminology that can actually understand how to relate to one another. So it's not only bottom-up, I think it's completely also bottom, but from the top. Again, we won't have the necessity to organize in this way, in my opinion.
All right, yeah. Stavroula, you want to comment something?
I have, so I have a question, because I agree with what both you, Dimitris, like both of you said that, right, about the companies and like, also like we have discussed today about the environment and like the impact on the environment. My question is, and to everyone probably, like how do we make big companies enter the discussion? Like, because we know that big companies have their own agenda and they care about their profit and everything. So how do we ensure that they actually enter the discussion seriously, not just, you know, on appearances only? How do we as society, like, make sure, like, what means do we have to make sure that the companies are accountable and they actually take into account and consideration all the things that we have said about, you know, the impact that AI can have on the environment and on society?
Andrea,
please answer the comment, or if you have any thoughts.
I mean, me?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very difficult question, yes, because how you can...
This is why we're here.
Yes, yeah, how we can you control this, actually? So, I don't know that there is a magical, you know, answer to this. We'll have to think about it, policymakers and also world organizations that will have to make some field of kind of laws and stuff like that, so in order not to get out of control. Well, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, Dimitri?
Okay, yeah, okay, I agree, but I think it's already happening. For example, you saw yesterday Mr. Evan something from Google. He's here, he's in the discussion. You saw what happened with Anthropic and the American government. Just last week, I referred this to my speech. They stopped the access to the Fable, their latest supermodel. Also, the things that Father Christoveris talked about the refusal of Anthropic to give the model to the Ministry of War of America. Well, it's already happening. Governments have stepped into the discussion, and just a few days ago in G7, the 7 CEOs of the great companies were talking in the G7. So I think at least the major countries of the world have understood that we have to have these these labs to the discussions, and because we can't have a bunch of people controlling a technology that can usurp and overthrow everything we know about human society.
Can I ask how you think it feels very similar to other technological regulation problems, no? It's like nuclear safety or food safety or internet even safety that is being discussed much more currently. So it seems like it will go through the same process of working out what the grey areas are and countries and citizens deciding on what the boundaries are. So I guess the worry would be that there's some kind of exceptionalism that makes the systems that we already have unable to deal with to respond. But it doesn't seem obvious to me that that's the case. But maybe you disagree.
No. I agree with you, but I think that we should act faster than all these examples, because this technology runs in exponentially rate, and from the laboratory's point of view, it's a zero-sum game. The lab that first reaches ASI, artificial superintelligence, supposedly can transmute, water to wine and everything to gold. Yeah, so we need to move fast. Agreed. And it's funny that you mentioned, nuclear regulation, because one of the ways that we can regulate this in an open, common society and a way like techno-theater and stuff, should be to distribute this technology to various locations locally and have them, parametro PEC to grade it. And yeah, this actually looks like the mutual deterrence system with nuclear weapons. Give everyone nukes so they won't nuke themselves. The mutual assured destruction policy, MAD, as it was called.
Yeah, but another issue from this convergence between states and companies in relation to the themes we're discussing and to Stavroula's presentation is not only the matter of the death of others becoming avatars that we can speak with, but the emergent scheme in company stakeholders that they think or they believe that they can connect through a hybridization, we would say, with a machine so that they can live forever, they can go immortal, they can fight mortality. So do you have any insights on that? Because it's something that is emergent. We see Sam Altman and others doing such experiments and wanting to live forever. And of course, we have, in the US, you might know it more, better, that we have the so-called transhumanist movement or tendency, or called whatever, and one of its key issues, key matters, is this fight against mortality, because the human body, we've heard so much about embodiment, about living body, about the embodied intelligence, etc., etc. Transhumanists think that of the human body as an illness that through technology we can overcome, right? So do you have any insight on being immortal through our avatars? Or some kind of critique, if I judge correctly.
No, I mean, these are very tough questions. So as soon as you start talking, I thought that you were going to mention artificial intelligent girlfriends or boyfriends, which is something that is being done nowadays. And again, we have like a series of dilemma. I think that on the one hand, someone can say, like, someone is lonely, someone is like dealing with depression, or is like too anxious to talk to living beings. So someone can argue that having like an AI boyfriend or an AI girlfriend can, bring some consolence, like bring some, joy to the life of this person. But also, like, we have in that case, as in the case that I was talking about, you have the absence of a real body, the absence of a real human being. Like, you don't have the reciprocity. So about the thing that you actually said, I mean, I have no idea. Like, I'm thinking what Father Christoveris mentioned about, like, immortality and, thinking that immortality can solve the problems, while in reality, like, I don't know. But this is something that definitely we're gonna see, like, I think, like, in 10 years from today, and we're gonna be probably alive, but like in 50, probably, like in 15 years from today, I think that the transhumans, as people call them, are gonna be a thing, especially in cases like Elon Musk, or like in cases of trillionaires or billionaires, or very, very rich people who have access to the best technologies. And this brings me back to what we were, both of you, I think, mentioned, like the inequality, basically, the fact that AI, is it really like equal? Is it really accessible to all equally? So probably no. I see a hand.
I see two hands.
Yeah.
That makes me very happy. Please. Please. Do you have a microphone or something? Oh.
Well, since you mentioned also the speech by Professor John, this reminded me how he concluded between Ulysses and Calypso. And this is something very intriguing there, because Calypso is outside time. It's achronal. And we as human beings are in time. Machines are never in time. They don't understand time. They have a clock, clack, 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 but this is not lived time. So, and even with the best woman at his side, which was somehow living Calypso, this was not satisfying for them. He left. He even rejected this status of immortality, which is being outside of time. So this is an additional element. It's not just Euripides. It's also in Homer, the encounter between Calypso and Ulysses is a reinforcement of this. And even with the best avatar, which is Calypso, it doesn't help.
Exactly.
This is an additional support for
it is to mention again Father Xavier's words, it is that immortality for humans wouldn't have a meaning. And again, to mention Martin Heidegger, we are living towards death always. This is our condition. This is the human condition. Overcoming it would mean that we wouldn't be human. And of course, I know that in the core of transhumanist movement, this is exactly what they want, to not being human. But maybe not being human is not having meaning in life. William.
There was another
comment. I comment on the comment from William, and then to another question.
Thank you. Maybe the bit I was going to point out, I guess, that maybe is the large point of disagreement between a neuroscientist and the general vibe of today has been the places of human difference between intelligences. And we've heard a few of those today, like the idea of relations as being a key part that is uniquely human. The idea of time was just mentioned, or the idea of a sense of self maybe was in your first question that I was answering. And I think in all these cases, it seems very hard to argue that the artificial will never have these things. I think we evolved the thing somehow, and it's there in our biological machinery. It seems inconceivable that there's not some way to bake it into a computer as well. And so I don't know whether the current systems have it. I'm not advocating for AI girlfriends and boyfriends as the alternative to a way to live a happy life or anything like that. But I think we have to come to terms with the fact that it seems inconceivable that artificial systems are unable to do that. It is, yeah, and that seems worth squaring with.
We are way far from Chinese room arguments.
Yeah.
In the back, yeah.
Thank you very much. Really impressive, gives me hope for the future. Two very brief linked questions. The first perhaps initially for Dr. Valtadorou, but others may want to comment. The second initially for Dr. Dorrell, is that right? But others may want to comment. One thing I don't think we've really mentioned in the last 2 days is just how many words there are in ancient Greek for various processes of intellection. Such a very, very wide vocabulary. So many words which we're kind of boiling down to intelligence and so on. And I was wondering if you thought that might be helpful in us addressing the questions of what AI systems can do. One of the key differences, of course, is to do with understanding and understanding of the reason why. And I noticed, Dr. Dorrell, you mentioned, and it's something I've been thinking about the last 2 days, that it might be easier to ascribe intelligence to an AI system than thinking. That thinking and thought is actually a more difficult thing to ascribe to an AI system. And it might be that an AI system can repeat the reason why something is the case. Does it understand it in a way that Plato or Aristotle would feel? Anyway, so just some thoughts. Does the richness of the ancient Greek language and the distinctions it makes, is that helpful in getting us to address these questions. We've rather boiled down an awful lot of verbs into intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you. That was, for me, for sure, yeah. I think that can be very helpful, studying the ancient Greek language and all the different words that they use for intelligence. I think it can definitely help us. I'm not a philosopher, I want to say, so I want to say that. But the one thing, again, it's philosophy. It's coming to mind from one of the comments that the one gentleman made. And something that we all discussed. I don't know if I'm answering many questions at the same time, but I'm thinking about, you know, the human irreplaceability, and like, why would Odysseus choose to reject the perfect, you know, woman and an immortal life? Like, I'm also thinking about Plato and like the decision that he made, like at the end of the Republic, like Politia. So I'm thinking like, what ancient Greek philosophers tell us is maybe like perfection is not the goal, like immortality, perfection, like is not something like the famous good, the famous life, like something that everybody wants, like the being like the most rich person, being the most beautiful, being the most successful, that we all like wanna be. Maybe it's not something that it can actually make us happy. So, and I'm thinking about your talk. So yeah, it's I don't know if I responded, but it makes me think of so many things that we have actually discussed the last 2 days. So I think it's like the ancient Greek philosophers and the ancient Greek writers definitely can give us food for thought and ways to think about and ask questions, basically, about artificial intelligence. I don't know.
Yes, Will?
I was going to respond to the thought versus intelligence distinction, and maybe what I was wafting at in that was a useful way to talk about thought is maybe the feeling of actually going through the process. And so really what you're getting there is self-awareness of the process. And that's the one that I think most neuroscientists get slightly scared while talking about, because it's very non-obvious how much progress we've made at understanding what's going on there. That said, there's a whole program of the neural correlates of consciousness that's trying to work out which brain areas are required to be active in order for you to be aware of what's happening. At what point does information propagate far enough in your visual hierarchy for you to really be consciously aware of it? So there are very empirical ways in which you can probe consciousness, what happens when you sleep, what happens in anesthesia, what happens when you have lesions in various areas. Then comes the question of, do you think machines are doing these things? I think that's a very difficult question. To me, there are properties of, the simplest answer seems to be that there are properties of certain algorithms that require them to be self-aware for some reason that's not obvious to anyone at the moment, as far as I can tell. And it seems like that's just the way that it has to be done in certain circumstances, when you're manipulating information internally in a way that like modeling of yourself is required in the process in some way that produces awareness. That is voodoo as far as I can tell at the moment, but it seems likely that both brains are doing it and that a system that's trained to do similar things that we're trained to do would also show the same effects. And so eventually thought would fall under that camp, but I have no idea whether the things we're doing at the moment are sufficient to produce that in artificial intelligence. And all of that was speculation, so don't trust anything I say.
Thank you, Will.
I didn't hear that, sorry?
Yeah.
And would that thought and that thinking involve understanding?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that
part.
Because
it's the understanding that's the really, really difficult move there.
Oh. I had not seen it as being the difficult part, so maybe we should talk more about the ways in which you're using this. But to me, you're really understanding things when you generalize when you've understood the structure in a way that generalizes perfectly to all things you're going to see in the future, because you've really understood the underlying basis of the object. And I think there are cases that are very far from anything self-aware or anything thinking that show that. So that is why I would use those differently, but yeah.
Let's have 2 brief questions, please, so we can be on time.
All right, I'll try to be very brief.
Thank you.
Before we talk about immortality, we have to obviously make a living, yes? So I'm a jazz musician, but also a researcher at the Athens University. And with Democritos Research Center, we did a research on jazz improvisation. And we fed AI systems. And we invited, 4 years ago, Simon Robot, a robot from Georgia Tech in Atlanta, came here and played at the Athens Concert Hall live in real time with my quartet. So, and we presented the results of jazz mapping and all the concept. Now, my point here is to say that very recently, because you mentioned Sam Altman and you also mentioned, that was a great actual presentation from all. Thank you for that. But recently, Sam Altman just mentioned that, okay, you jazz musicians, why do you want anything back? I mean, you used to learn from each other. I mean, like Miles Davis used to learn from Louis Armstrong. Because, you know, you used to steal from each other. So in a sense, he says that, okay, you used to do that, and we are a jazz community, an artistic community, so he gets all our data, and he never gives back anything. So I think this is a key point with the AI and the data that AI uses. It's okay if AI takes the papers that I have out, because they're published papers. But if AI gets whatever we do creatively without acknowledging the source and giving back to the community, it's not the same as Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis, please. So I think we have to comment about that, because this is the key issue here, because first we need to survive. Somebody else is getting all the money, and they're talking about not longevity, but they're talking about, you know, this transhuman thing, which we even did. I mean, playing with a robot is collaborating with a machine. But the key issue here is all those, is this value coming back to the creators?
Thank you. Let's take one more question so we can have one round of answers to the issues stated.
I don't know how helpful that would be, because it's very different trajectory. You were talking about Elon Musk or someone wanting to be immortal forever, or some part of themselves. And I was wondering, why would someone want that? Of course, something in me wants that too. Everyone does. It's the ego in us. And there's a theory that says that the reason why ancient Greek gods, like the 12 god system, was misplaced later by the one God that rules overall and connects the whole world together, the one creator, was because the gods were too close to humans. And yet we always wanted to be close to them. And even now, we still want to be the closest we can to that one creator. So I think there's something in us wants to approach God or whatever that power of creation is, to feel like we're higher than the other people and we have something more. But what we forget is that whatever the God, the creation, is something unifying. And yesterday we talked about ecosystems, we talked about interlinked connections. I think a lot of the unhappiness nowadays stems from the fact that we forget we're a collective. You're not Elon Musk, you're not one ego, you're one person in the whole humanity. And once you disconnect yourself and you want to have a continuation on your individual existence forever, you forget that humanity still goes on and carries you with it, because it's not just about your ego. I'm sorry, it wasn't a question, it was just like, I was pondering on why would someone want that?
Perfect. So does anyone want to comment either on data privacy and data accumulation, or the fact that our economic and political system tears us apart of the communion that is in our nature?
So I'm gonna respond to the second one, I think. Like, it's also, I think it's the human nature, like we wanna, I'm thinking of Icarus and Daedalus and, you know, trying to achieve something that we cannot, and when we get burned at the end. But I'm thinking about the demonia and the like the flourishment that we were discussing earlier, that trying to achieve immortality, which is like basically impossible, is not gonna create the right conditions for humans to be happy. And like we don't give ourselves time to watch a plant grow. I mean, no less, you know, obviously. But so like trying to achieve immortality, I think it's like useless. but it's also part of the human condition trying to achieve things that we cannot actually achieve, I think, if it makes any sense.
Thank you, Stavroula. Yes, whoever.
Well, I could make a final, you know, provocative to our neuroscientist here, and also following the remarks concerning understanding and consciousness. Well, we don't even know how we as human beings create consciousness, and I must say that I would like to ask if there is some point, some progression toward this, if there is an emergent or something like, you know, a higher, you know, mental state as complexity goes and goes on. If this is, you know, miracle happens and then consciousness, what can you say about this?
Wait to see if Dimitris wants to comment something on the questions, because I'm in the very unfortunate position to tell you that you can answer this after the session, because we need to, you know, move on. So Dimitris, do you want to answer something about?
Yes. I'll just make a brief comment on the IP argument, which is very important. And as we already know, the short-term period is going to be really messy. It's going to tear us apart. But in my opinion, the database of this technology is de facto collective. It is collective. It's built on every one of us. And our labor and our collective civilization's archive. So instead of trying to analyze and solve this with capitalism terms, we should try and demand, it is a political claim, that the actual technology is also collective. It's also democratized. It is also a common infrastructure. So I believe that all these talks for the short term have this, this spirit, that we, each and every one of us, everywhere he stands, must advocate for the democratization of this technology. Because if not, the consequence won't be poor and rich. It would be Star Trek spacemen and amoebas. This is the distinction. Yes.
You know what's coming. Will, one last comment, please.
I was going to go to the immortality one.
Yeah,
I don't have
go
a,
for
that
the
was a very good response to the...
Let's pursue immortality.
Yeah, and then we can do consciousness later. But all I was going to say is I think there's less of a stark black and white difference between the things that people like Elon Musk are chasing. I don't know if he actually wants, yeah, whatever these people want, and what we have at the moment. I think you can view it as graded, right? Every medical procedure we try and pursue is an attempt to extend life and beat disease. If we're just, you could view it as a version of that. Putting someone on a computer does not make them immortal, right? There can be a meteor that hits the computer you're working on, and suddenly you don't exist anymore. And so you can view it in the same graded manner, and I think then you can view the kinds of questions you were asking about the communities you exist in that state in a similarly graded manner, like the questions that we ask about quality of life extensions, like should we always be giving medical treatment if the life that we're going to live is not the one that we'd want to live? And you can view the question of like moving into do we want to move into an internet hypersphere where we hang around alone? Maybe that's not a good extension of life. And I think it doesn't seem so... That's maybe my whole theme. It's like it's often not very exceptional. The stories, they're like similar to what we've seen before, and maybe framing it in that way gives you the tools to attack it.
All right. So I know that we could keep on and going for dinner then, but we have other things, other sessions to watch. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for staying this long. To next year. Thank you all. Thank you.